Hi, this is Fernanda here. We're going to finish chapter 7, but before we do, chapter 7 of Chasing Vermeer by Blue Balliett, I want to share with you again the PowerPoint that I made. So let me share my screen just for a moment. I want to show you the painting that Mrs. Sharp had in her house. She said it's a print of the painting. It's not the original painting. But here it is, the Geographer by Vermeer, and this is the same painting that's on the top of Calder's box that his grandmother gave him. So that's kind of a coincidence, or is it? There's these, whoopsies, these mysteries are starting to come together a little bit. Remember, like the pentomino is starting to put things together. So there it is in full color of the Geographer. And that was on the cover of his book. And then I wanted to have a quick look at the map again, because when you have a map in a book, you should absolutely use it. Powell's Used Books is the one that's way up here in the corner, a little bit out of our screen. And then we have Petra's house number 11, and Calder's house here, number 10. And Mrs. Sharp lives here at number 9. So, and then the school that they're walking back and forth to is right here. That's just a little reminder of where we are in the book. We're going to go ahead now and finish chapter 7, which was a little bit too long for one video. We're at the top of page 73, and Calder has just informed us that he's happy that things seem to be going better at school because he's starting to make a friend. Calder borrowed Petra's copy of Lowe that afternoon. She was right, for it was an extraordinary thinker. He looked fearlessly at occurrences that no one could explain. Even better, he looked everywhere for patterns. Calder understood the man's fascination with connecting things that didn't seem related, and he admired the way Fort challenged the experts. How could Mrs. Sharp ever have gotten tired of such an exciting book? Speaking of Mrs. Sharp, he had some detective work to do. The reproduction of the Geographer in his library book was clearer and brighter than the copy of the painting on his box. Behind the man was a framed map, and above that the signature I. Vermeer, and under that Roman numeral, which is 1657, I think? 67. 1657. Calder counted 1,000 plus 500 plus 100 plus 50 plus 10 plus 5 plus 3, 1668. Oh, I didn't see the 3 ones there. 1668. The artist's full name was Johannes Vermeer, also known as Jan Vermeer, and he was from the Netherlands in Northern Europe. The book explained that no one knew for sure who the Geographer was, but that the area where Vermeer lived was a center for map makers. It talked about how people with money liked to hang maps on the walls of their houses to show that they were wealthy and that they thought about the world. Oh, that's so interesting. Map making was a respected profession, something between science and an art. Calder flipped back and forth in the book, looking at some of the other Vermeer paintings. Most of them showed people in front of a window. The Geographer's rug appeared in many of the paintings, and the same yellow jacket turned up in a number of places. Do you remember how Petra at the very beginning talks about the color yellow and how it's always a surprise? The pictures made you feel as though you were peeking in at someone else's private moment. The light that came from outside made ordinary objects seem important. A quill pen, a pitcher with milk, an earring, the brass buttons that were part of a straight-backed chair. It occurred to Calder that there could be hidden information here. After all, codes involved repetition, and the same objects appeared again and again in Vermeer's work. There was the obvious geometry of window panes and floor tiles, and then all the pearls, baskets, pictures, and framed maps. There was symmetry, both complete and carefully broken. Calder read more. The book said that Vermeer died penniless, so that means he was poor, totally broke, when he was in his 40s, and that almost nothing was known about his life. No one understood why such a famous painter had made only 35 works of art. No one knew who the people he painted were, or why he painted the things he did. No one knew how he became an artist. Vermeer had left behind more questions than answers. Let's go ahead and start chapter 8 as well. A Halloween surprise. On the morning of Sunday, October 31st, Petra overheard her dad telling her mom that he just wasn't up for Halloween. Frank, think of the kids. Her mom sounded tense. Then Petra heard her dad's rumble and parts of what he said. Sorry, honey. Letter in the mail this week. You'll see. Before we know it, he'd given her mom a hug. What letter? And what had happened to the one that was torn up? What would be over? Did their family need money? Would they have to move? Petra suddenly longed to tell Miss Hussey what she just realized. Important letters couldn't be talked about because they always held secrets. Miss Hussey must never have gotten one, or she'd know that. Harper Avenue was in its element on Halloween. People came from miles around to walk down the block where Petra and Calder lived, and families took pride in becoming as frightening as possible. Graves sprang up in front of yards, complete with scattered bones, headstones, and shovels. Tarantulas looped from gutters, and pumpkins flashed and growled. Corpses hanging from second-story windows swung gently in the darkness. Chocolate eyeballs rolled underfoot. A mesh of webs covered bushes and porches, and crackly voices and organ music came from flower beds. For the kids who lived on the block, costumes were a big deal. At 4 that afternoon, Petra was struggling to tie ribbons in her hair. Bouncy and curly, it didn't like the idea of being pulled back so tightly. Petra finally yanked out all the ribbons and made a tight ponytail and a tidy bun. Then she fastened the already tied ribbons on with bobby pins. Next, she put on her homemade earrings. They were large white beads that hung on a loop. She looked different, quite definitely. The train roared by outside the window, and Petra stood still, watching her earrings tremble with the vibrations. She put on her jacket with a fake fur collar and cuffs. She had sewn carefully trimmed pieces of an old Dalmatian costume onto a yellow sweater. She was ready. Lowering her lids a fraction of an inch and smiling a smile that was more an idea than a movement, she looked at herself sideways in the mirror. She felt filled, at least for that moment, with the easy elegance of the writer in her dream. There she is. I know you see it in your book too. When Petra opened the door, there was Calder on her front porch wearing a large red letter made out of taped together cardboard squares. Hi, Calder. Petra. She suddenly wished she hadn't done all that stuff to her hair and instinctively pulled back out of the light. You look like something I've seen. I mean, just like a painting. Well, I do, Petra mumbled. How did you think of dressing up like her? Like who? Petra looked at Calder directly now, frowning slightly. The lady with the feather pen, the lady at the desk. Calder tried to protect his pentomino costume as Petra pulled him into her front hall. Tell me exactly what you're talking about. Look out! Now you've bent my F, Calder said crossly. What are you so upset about? I'm sorry, it's just that you recognize my costume. You see, I dreamed about it. What do you mean you dreamed about the painting, that painting? I didn't say it was a painting. I don't know what it was. Weird. I have your picture at home. Come over and see for yourself. They were down Petra's steps and up Calder's in seconds. Once inside, Calder ducked out of his F and flew up the stairs. When he reappeared, he was carrying an oversized library book. He sat on the floor and leafed quickly through the reproductions. Petra knelt beside him. There! Petra's stomach, gave a sickening lurch. It was not only her costume, it was the woman in her dream. She touched the reproduction with her hand as if to be sure it was really there. The caption next to it read, Johannes Vermeer, a lady writing, 1665. Okay, let's look at that one more time. So here is Our Lady writing. Oops. There we go. Oh, what happened? Let's quickly go back to her. There's the pentominoes. There she is. Oh, you see why Petra wanted to put all those ponytails and ribbons in her hair here? Because that's what the lady has here. And then look at this, the Dalmatian spots that she wanted to put in the yellow jacket. She did. She dressed like the lady in the picture. And then Calder recognized her. It's a famous Vermeer painting, except that she had never seen the painting. The lady just came to her in a dream. Pretty cool and a little mysterious. Okay, see you next time.